The difference between successful people and others is how long they spend time feeling sorry for themselves. Barbara Corcoran, you are listening to the Real Estate Investor Show, episode number 5.
Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
What's the key to succeed? I don't believe there is a key. I believe there's a bunch of them. From personal growth, building a team, overcoming fear and trying new things, reading books, surrounding yourself with key people. There's a lot, right? But that's also possible. And I can't wait for you to hear the story that we are about to tell you.
Today we are going to interview Theresa Calantoni. She started as an agent before she was even 20 years old. And today she's a broker with Keller Williams and runs the largest real estate office in the Lehigh Valley area with over 200 agents working for her. She also has a number of rental properties and is currently involved with new construction. So welcome, Theresa.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Really neat background. You're owner and broker of Keller Williams up in Bethlehem, PA, and you're the largest real estate agency in that market, which is awesome, and that's super.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. So, so
thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on here and get into a lot of neat elements of investing and running a business and balancing it all. But as we jump into things, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, obviously you have a brokerage and you're an owner of that business, but you're also an active investor and you have a lot of neat things
Correct.
You're doing with that. So
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in real estate and where did it all begin for you?
Well, it feels like a lifetime ago, but so right out of high school, actually, I got into real estate sales. 18. I actually took my courses when I was 17, and I had to wait a little bit to actually get hired by a local real estate company because I wasn't old enough to sign contracts.
Wow.
So I jumped right into it at 18, and I think the thing that I knew at that time was that I did not want to go to a 4-year school. I just didn't want to have more schooling, It just wasn't for me. So just college wasn't what I wanted at that time. And so it was like, what could I do that's professional? And I was like, wow, in 60 hours, I could sell somebody's house. So here we go. And so I did that. I took the courses, got hired by a local real estate office, and just tried to figure it out. Fortunately, it was a small family-owned firm, and they kind of taught me the ropes. And so that got me into residential resales. And in that time period, the only way that I knew that at the time, this was 1999, January 1999. So when I started it, and the only way I knew that I could get ahead sort of was like, well, I better go get a broker's license because that's how I'm going to get a pay raise here doing this. So I started taking my broker's courses. It took a couple of years. And then once I finished my broker's courses, at that point, we're about 3 years into it. I went into selling new construction full time. And that sort of gave me the construction background that I needed to think about investing and other things, other avenues other than just sales. So I got my broker's license right before my 22nd birthday, and I did nothing with it for years because I was just selling new construction, and the market started to take off, and things were good, and that just sort of occupied all of my time. And so once I learned those ropes and did the new construction thing for a while, when the market crashed, I met with one of my good friends who was a commercial broker, and we actually opened an independent real estate office in 2008, which sounds odd that it was the downturn in the market, but it was the right thing to do at that time when I look back in hindsight, because we had to make a change. I couldn't just rely on new construction sales, which were dying off, and so I had to make a change, and so partnering with somebody who did completely opposite of what I did made sense because we would offset one another. And so we opened a small independent office in 2008 and did well. We didn't light the world on fire, but I don't think anything in real estate was lit on fire in those years. So we did well, and then I can say that we didn't lose. We more treaded water, but it was good. And in 2010, I was being recruited by Keller Williams, and in January of 2011, that was the right decision to plug into KW and merge our office with them. And that's when I became the broker of Keller Williams, which you had talked about earlier. So that's a little bit of my business background. I realized in the new construction, though, dealing with, builders and contractors and stuff, that the hard times, the way that these builders and the really successful ones got through the hard times, is that they had a lot of rental income. And so that's really what saved the day. It was less stressful when you had, hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in a month from rentals, and they could, take more risk and not be so worried when they didn't have their sales, because things were taken care of. Right. So having multiple streams of income was kind of enlightening to me. And, when I look back, I feel like, well, I should have did it earlier, right? Because I didn't really start getting into it until I was like 29, 30 years old, but still, better late than never. And so that's when I became focused on, I needed more streams of income. I needed more streams of income than worrying about where my next sale was coming from. So that's how I kind of got into the investing side of it.
Right now, how many realtors do you have in your branch?
In our office here in Bethlehem, we have just about 200 agents. When I looked the other day, I think we were like 197. So.
Okay, I can't avoid asking you about this. At 18 years old, you had your license. What was going on in your mind at that time? Because my mindset at 18 was not like that. I know a lot of people there. It's not like that. Is there anybody that inspired you at that time too?
Here was my motivation. My motivation was that I didn't want to rely on anybody else for my happiness, or my success. And I think the reason being is that, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad, worked hard and provided for us. But I always saw that if she really wanted something, she had to rely on my dad for it. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I never wanted to be in that position. And so I wanted to get out on my own as quickly as possible. And it was either I was going to go away to college and I was going to go really far away and have my own life, or I was going to go to work. And so I chose to go to work. And that really was a driving factor for me to get out there and figure it out. And I really had no idea what I was doing at 18, how to sell. I really didn't know. I mean, that's the truth. I really didn't know. And I really didn't know I had to pay income. I mean, I figured it out, but I really didn't know that, at the end of the day, I got to pay taxes on this stuff. Are you kidding? So, but that was what was going through my mind, was how quickly can I be self-sufficient so that I don't have to rely on someone else. Mm-hmm. And that was really the driving factor at that time. So.
Right. I see a lot of folks out there that use their age, lack of experience, and other excuses to do not get started. And you went full force at 18. You chose to go a different path instead of going to the traditional college.
Correct.
But I see that you have a student mentality since the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, education is huge, and it doesn't always have to be traditional education, right? As we've all learned, we continue to educate, even my friends who go to school, who've gone to college, and I see them working in the real estate industry, and they went to school and they're not using what they went to school for, but we're constantly educating. And personal growth has been one thing that I've always been hungry for. And when I look back, it's by far the best investment I've ever made. And it's funny how through the years I've evolved with like different growth patterns and different people that have helped me. So it was like who my mentor was when I was 18 would probably look up to me now. You know what I mean? Like, I see. So as I've evolved, it's like once you think bigger and your mind's expanded, I can't go back. Right. So that was one thing, was constant growth. And it's like the things that really excited me that I couldn't wait to do. Now it's like, okay, now I'm like standing on the floor of what was the ceiling. Now I need a new ceiling to break through, so the growth pattern changes or expands all the time, but it never stops. right? We create new habits and new things to help hit the next level all the time.
There's so many things I want to ask you, but I have to prioritize here, right? Because we only have a certain amount of time. There's like 7 things I wrote down. So I want to get back to the rental properties you own, and we want to get into that a bit, but we're going to circle back there. Since we're talking about personal growth, and you're talking about, really expanding yourself. And it's, I heard the analogy one day that one time, one of these workshops that, it's like stretching like a pair of underwear. And if you stretch it too much and you eat too much, you can't go back. It's hard to, once it stretches, it's pretty much like, oh, okay, these are too big. So it's the same thing. I mean, it's probably a horrible analogy, but it's the same thought process of once you stretch yourself, it's really hard to go back to who you were. So like specifically, what would you say is like the recipe for your success? Because you went from, an 18-year-old who they took a chance at even hiring you for, right. Like, right, that you didn't even, you weren't even old enough to sign some paperwork, to now, you have a rental portfolio, you're doing new construction, you have this enormous team, you have ownership in one of the most successful real estate, companies in the country. So what specifically have you done when it comes to personal growth? Is it a weekend? Is it a workshop? Is it a group? Is it a course? I'm curious.
So, my natural ability, even though I am in real estate sales, my natural ability is not the one, like, I'm not going to seek you out in a room to go talk. Like, I'm the last person. If I'm sitting at the bar, I'm probably not the one striking up the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody else is coming to me. Like, it's just not my natural style to do that. So it's learning. When somebody said to me, you have to learn, and I don't know when this was told to me, but I will never, ever forget this. Somebody said to me, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when I figured out that I just got to step outside and just see what happens, like, what the hell is the worst that's going to happen, right? So it was going to, some growth like workshops, like flying to Dallas and, signing up for coaching. Business coaching was probably the best thing that I ever did. I signed up for I remember back in 2008 when I had opened my real estate office, I was like, okay, I understand how to list and sell property, but I've never really had to run a business. So making that mind shift from being a salesperson. So it's like the Robert Kiyosaki, right? You're an employee, then you're self-employed, then you're a business owner, and then your money does it for you, right? You're an investor. Yep. So it was going from that salesperson to the business owner. I didn't understand. I kept the books. I mean, I did everything because I couldn't afford to pay somebody to do it. So I was the bookkeeper. I was the salesperson. I was the trainer. I was the, everything, the admin. I was everything. So it was making that shift from being self-employed to a business owner. I needed help because I really wasn't sure how to do that, right? How am I going to lead other people when I don't know how to lead myself here into this? So I signed up for like a $99 a month coaching program, and then they had some kind of conference. And then I went to the conference, and then I got to a point where I got a full-time coach, like personal business coach, where you're paying them, $1,000 a month. And so that was the best thing I ever did, was coaching. And I've had not so good coaches over the years. I was fortunate that the coach that I did get was one of the best coaches for me at the time. And he really taught me how to run a business, how to keep the books, how to keep the people who work for me motivated, how to track what they were doing, how to help them set goals, how to incorporate their goals into the business. Like, those types of things helped me. And by doing that, it showed me how to run a business at a profit. And then by having a profit, then I was able to invest that money to create more money for me in streams of whether it's a rental property or it's investing it in another real estate business, related business, or I've had the opportunity to build some custom homes for people because I understood the new construction market. Not something I want to do all the time, but it was a good experience. So that coaching led to so many other things.
I've had coaches over the years, and I don't currently have one, but you have to be vulnerable. You have to, it's not just like, hey, tell me what to do. It's a real authentic process. It's
really looking at your failure. You know what I mean? It's failing forward. It's failing forward is what it is. It's not dwelling on it, but it's saying, okay, look, I screwed up. I made a mistake. I didn't hit my goal. Why didn't I do it? And how am I going to change it? And how are we going to make it better? So in having somebody that's relatable is really key, and it's key in anything in business. He taught me that you have to hire to your core values, and it's like funny because it's not, I learned that when I look back, and I didn't know this at the time, because I think everybody gets caught up in, how am I going to do this, right? So if you're thinking you want to buy your first property, you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to save $50,000 or $30,000 or whatever it is, right? How am I going to save that much money to do it? And it's not so much how, it's who's going to help you do it. You know what I mean? Because there's a way, and there's somebody, if the opportunity is there, that's going to help you. It's who's going to help me get there. And that he taught me that I had to surround myself with people who had the same core values as me, because when things are going great, everybody's doing well, right? Everybody's happy. It's when, the times get tough and the road gets rocky, when you have to have those core values in order to stick together to make things work. So
absolutely. Yeah. I want to touch base on that. You're part of a mastermind group called Symmetry 7.
Yes, that's correct.
I wanted you to talk more about it.
So I got involved in Symmetry 7 by accident. Is what happened.
That there's no accident.
Well,
right?
there's no accidents. I guess you're right. There are no accidents. So one of my business partners here in the real estate company, he joined GoBundance, which I'm sure most of you know what that is. Yeah. And he joined GoBundance. And I said to him, my staff was telling me, and my team, and we're real good, and we were doing some goals, and they're like, I live in such a small town here in Bethlehem, and they're like, you need to be challenged a little more. Like, we feel like you're not challenged enough. Like, you feel like you're bored, And one of the women who works with me, and she's a good friend of mine, she said, you should see if there's anything like this for women. So I walked into Sean's office and I said, hey, I know you're part of GoBundance. I'm like, is there anything for women? And he's like, you know what? Ironically, they're starting a women's group. And I'm like, really? He's like, there's no question that you'll be in it. And I'm like, okay, so I fill out this application. I send it to the guy who runs GoBundance, who happens to be a friend. And the women interviewed me, and I went to talk about stepping outside your comfort zone. I went to Mexico with, I forget how many women were there. It was probably like 14 or 15 women, and did not know one person. This was, so I got into this group. It was, at the time, it was GoBundance for women, but we spun off and became Symmetry 7 because the GoBundance didn't work out for the women's side. But it was January of 2016. Okay. So not that long ago, right? Mm-hmm. So January of 2016, I flew to, I was like Cancun or whatever. I flew to Mexico, and I met these women, and we all stayed in a house. I actually had to share a bed with which I was like, there is no way. We are too old. How old are we, 12? We're not sharing beds. You can imagine, with somebody I've never met before. So when I got there, I was debating to go right back to the airport and fly back home. and thank God I didn't. And I stayed, and it was a great growth experience. We ended up all becoming friends, and we evolved into this group called Symmetry 7. And I think there's like 9 of us in the group right now, but we are mostly United States. I think there's one woman with us from Canada, and we get together once a quarter, or we have an event once a quarter, I guess, and everybody can make it once a quarter. But we do what we call a balance sheet. And the balance sheet is like a snapshot of your life. So it's got your financials on it, and you present your financials to the group. And then it's like the other pillars of your life. So, relationships, career, spirituality, fitness, all that stuff's there. And then you have your top priorities that you want to have for the year or whatever. And you go over them. You talk about what you've accomplished, what you need to be held accountable for. And then we go over all that stuff, and we try to hold each other accountable to it, and we do a bunch of fun stuff. So that picture that you said that you saw, I was with them in Las Vegas last month. I think we were in Las Vegas last month, and we took a helicopter ride into the Grand Canyon. So that was that picture that you saw. But we do a lot of fun stuff, and we've become such good friends because we all have the same types of values. It's a bunch of women coming together who work hard, we're high performing, and we like to have fun and hold each other accountable to the things we want to accomplish. So. And
it's also a safe place for you guys to share the struggles and be honest with each other and inspire.
Nobody judges anybody. It's a non-judgmental situation. Not everybody's perfect. People have setbacks. We don't always hit our goals. Things happen. It's a safe environment, but it's supportive.
Well, you bring up a great point, and Andres and that's how we kind of started before we even started this podcast. We're in a mastermind together, and it's important whether women are just starting out, or they're in their growth mode of their business, or wherever they are. It's really important to be in something like that, to have women that are looking out for you and to support you and that have common, like you said, common values. It's so important, especially when you're talking to like friends that, you've been friends with forever. They love you, but you tell them, oh, I'm really excited about this, fill in the blank. And you're looking at, it's just like you're looking at
it's
them
not what they're your friend, but they don't understand that and they can't wrap their head around it. And therefore it's taken like they're not being supportive or whatever. Right. So it's different. It's nice. And we're from all over the place. Like, California, Arizona, Utah, Florida, Pennsylvania, we're all over the place. So it's nice that it's really a mix. And I look forward to it. I mean, some of these, I could call any of them at any time and, they would lend a helping hand. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So just to shift gears a little bit, I want to get back to your rental proproperties as well. Tell us a little about your portfolio. What is it made up of, and what are you working on?
I don't have a huge rental. I mean, I know we're talking. I don't feel like I have a huge rental portfolio. So I have 6 properties, and they're all local to my market. And they're just we have a bunch of colleges around here where I live. So I try to invest in a close proximity to the college so that. It's just typically the college buys a lot of the properties in the area and they kind of keep it a little bit nicer. And then you got, it's a little bit more, I'm not going to say it's more affluent, but it's just, it's easier to rent them. And I don't know. I just like those areas and they're usually good value. So the first one that I ever bought, I bought the property. And then I did, so there's an acronym for this, and it's escaping me at the moment. I'm not going to be able to do it off the top of my head. But there's an acronym that I read this article on where it was like, buy the property.
Or the BRRRR strategy.
Yes, exactly. The BRRRR strategy. Yeah. And you're supposed to add an A in there and you advertise it and then you can write it off or whatever, but we won't talk about that right now. So
that's the new thing. Yeah.
I did that strategy.
And what Theresa's talking about is basically a strategy. You're buying a dilapidated rental property and you're buying it so that you add the value, you fix it up, you put the new fill in the blank, and then you're basically then refinancing it. And then the beauty of that is you're pulling money out and then you're repeating it and doing it over and over again.
Okay. Exactly. And I remember the first one that I did, so I bought it, got it rented, fixed it up, got it rented. And then I did a cash out refi. And I remember I got 100% of my money back plus $1,000. Wow. And I was like, whoa, I'm like, how do I do this all the time? Yeah. Right. Cause I was like, that's amazing. I'm like, I just used zero. I'm like, basically I got 100% of my money back. And I'm like, okay. And it cash flows. And so I'm like, okay, how do I continue to do this over and over again? And so that really was the first time I did that. I remember talking to one of the women in the Symmetry 7, and I was like, I felt like I invented fire. I was like, oh my God, I just used no money, and I got it all back, and I got a tenant, and it cash flows, and that was really eye opening. It was actually thrilling. It was a good feeling because it was like, okay, it was like a victory, and I'm like, I could be addicted to doing this. but it's not that easy. Obviously, I've bought some that just are not. They're like forever ongoing nightmares of repairs. Of course, but so it's not all beautiful. But yeah, that's really been my strategy. So the new thing that I have, the newest thing I'm going to try is I just purchased 3 lots, and they're right next to each other. And my intention this spring is to start building. I'm going to build 3 properties. So single family, 2, one's a twin, one's a duplex, and one's a single on these lots, and rent those out. So it's to start from scratch, like start from brand new and try it. So
tell us a little about that process. So, Andressa and I have been involved in both of those, strategies. And they're different, right? They have a different feel. There's a different process. I mean, Andressa can
it's much longer process.
Much longer
construction.
Andressa, that's her expertise. I would be kind of foolish to tell you the whole thing because I would miss a bunch of things. But the point though is that it is a transition. So now the 6 properties are those duplexes? Duplexes?
No, they're all single family.
Single family.
But,
okay.
I mean, they're like maybe like it could be a half a double, but they're all single family.
Gotcha. Okay.
Properties. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So
I don't have any multifamily. They're all single family.
So what inspired you to shift a bit and buy the lots and do new construction? What for you shifted that?
That's a good question. I don't know what I don't even know why I was looking at lots. I would think I was looking, I think that, being in real estate, I saw them come up and I thought, these could be a pretty good deal. And so there was multiple offers on them, and I put an offer in, and I thought, well, here's what I did. Here's just sparked my memory. So I called the bank that I deal with that does these cash out refis for me, because I do them with commercial lender, because I do it. They're not residential, they're commercial loans that I get on. And so, so I said to him, I said, hey, if I want to build a property for rental, would you fund it? And he said, we don't really do that, but it's a community bank, so they can kind of bend the rules a little bit. He's like, we don't really do that. He said, but if you're really just going to rent it, he goes, and you're really going to rent it and you're not going to sell it, he's like, we'll consider doing it. And so that was, to me, was the first thing. I was like, okay, I got the financing, right? So if I pay cash for the lots, then that's my down payment. And then all I need to do is, not all I need to do. There's a lot that goes on in freaking getting a building permit and building a house in today's world. But and there's a lot of codes. There's a lot of codes and a lot of details that go along with it. So beware if this is something you're thinking about doing. Make sure you know somebody who does it all the time. But so that was the first thing that I made that call first, and I said, hey, look, if I do this, would you finance it? And he said yes. And so that gave me the motivation to say, okay, let me go buy these lots. These will be the down payment on the loan. They're worth, to make sure that they're going to be worth 20% of the project, because that's what they want into it, right? Because if I default, they want to make sure that they're going to get the money back. So that was the first thing. And then secondly, I, took a contractor out there, because these lots are a little bit sloped, and I wanted to make sure that the excavation work wasn't going to kill me. So I had somebody look at that. And then, so then I thought, okay, well, I have a preliminary approval plan. My next step is then, getting approvals and pulling a building permit and moving forward. So
the
which
fun
I
part.
Yeah.
Waiting for the city to answer.
Yeah. So that's the part that was how I got to it. I saw this opportunity and I thought, these could be a good deal, because all the houses around it were new. It was an area that was like newly developed, and it was developed for, like lower income housing, but they were all brand new and still in a nice area. Like, they're around the college. So,
nice.
So I was like, okay, I can pick these up, very reasonable, I think. And if I do that, and I wasn't scared of the fact that they were a little bit sloped, and I knew that I could work.
Are you building 3 of them at the same time?
Well, I wanted to build one, rent it, build another, rent it, and the contractor's like, it's cheaper if we're here doing the excavation work for all 3. So I was like, I haven't determined that yet, but it looks like that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. So.
Well, we're actually, Liz and I are doing that right now. We're going to sell it. We're not going to rent it. The neighborhood doesn't cash flow well over there, and our exit strategy is to rent. But we were able to leverage a lot the numbers by building 3 at the same time instead of just building one. Or that was, we had to negotiate that with all the suppliers and with the GC as well. So the numbers made a lot of sense building 3 at the same time.
And so that's kind of where I'm going with it, I think. And and as you know, it's like the structure, the foundations, the structure, the roof, all of that stuff, like the interiors, the kitchens and stuff like that, I can stagger that. You know what I mean? If I wanted to do one and then get it rented and then do the night, like that stuff I could stagger. But the actual construction, I think it makes sense to do all 3 while they're in there, while the machines are there, while the, it's just, it does make sense. So that's probably the way it's going to go. So
awesome.
I want to circle back on something you said that I think it's really helpful for our listeners to really get and to really take home. You saw these lots, but you didn't really begin this kind of thought process until you spoke to the bank, and then you went to a relationship that you were comfortable with, and that they knew you, they liked and respect you, and you got the financing set up. And I think so much in this business, people are like, just find the deal and the money will follow. Well, yeah, but no sometimes. And I sometimes disagree with that thinking. I think it's much more strategic to actually line things up. And now you can't get everything lined up perfectly, but it's so much more helpful to be strategic in your approach and to get your relations set up and start to plant these seeds, and then then you start looking for the lots. And I think that actually is more of an inspiring strategy versus there's lots and you're like, well, how am I going to pay for them? I don't know anyone. Well, maybe that's not what you start with then, So, right. But I think a lot of, I wanted to say was a lot of women and a lot of investors, I should say, but this, obviously shows geared towards women. A lot of investors will say, well, I don't have those bank relationships yet, or I don't have all the money. Start with who like and respect you today. There are people in your life that like and respect you today. You went to a banking relationship. Everyone has people that like and respect them. And I think that's where you start. Whether it's the realtor or it's the banker or it's the community insurance guy that you've known for 10 years, whomever. Yeah. But I think that's an easy way to start. Yeah. And I don't think people realize that.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I think a big thing is getting past the, how is it going to get done? Who's going to help me do it?
Yeah.
Right? Because we can't do this alone. I don't know about you, but I cannot say that, I have only experienced the success I have because I've surrounded myself with people who have helped me get there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it wasn't on purpose, sometimes it, and I know you say there's no accidents, but sometimes I just, took a chance and then I met somebody and then I was like, oh my God, yeah, okay, this person can help me. Or the person helped me in a way that I thought they were going to help me in a different way, So it's that type of thing. But if you don't put it out there, and you don't take that first step, being afraid of failure is probably the worst thing that there could be, because it's okay to fail. It's just making sure that you're learning from it and that you don't fail over and over again, making the same mistake. And I continue to fail every day. It's the stupid stuff, and things happen that don't go your way. And I'm sure everybody experiences that. And it's just making sure that you're realizing it, you're taking responsibility for your actions. I find too many people want to point the finger. It's take responsibility for your actions. You are 100% accountable for yourself 100% of the time.
A big myth also is that we don't have fear, right? And we act in spite of the fear. I think that's the key for a lot of folks out there that are either starting or looking to get to the next step. Surround yourself with the right people and take action, even if it is a baby step, but take action and act despite your fear.
Yeah. And like I said, when somebody told me you got to be uncomfortable, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that was really a very important thing, was that you got to, stepping outside my comfort zone and doing things that I don't feel good about, and I might look like an idiot because I don't know what I'm doing, but you'll figure it out. If you want it bad enough, you'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Do you manage and do you manage all your properties, Theresa?
I do. Yeah, I do it myself. But. What
is the greatest tip that you can offer people? Because we also manage quite a bit, and we've since strategizing on moving beyond some of that, because it can get a little it's management, right? So I'm curious, what if you had to give our the listeners one tip of self-managing, what would it be?
I'd say the best tip, and I know this sounds goofy, is you got to pick the right tenant. Because it's not just having too many people are worried about being vacant for too long. It's never been an issue of mine. I will make sure that I get the right person in there, because the last thing I want to do is go through an eviction process and have them, just go through that. It's just a pain in the butt. So it's making sure that, and there's nothing that's foolproof, but it's screening the tenant properly to make sure that they're a match for the property and that they're going to take care of it. In that if they do have something wrong, they're communicating with you. I'd say that's the best tip, is screening the tenant properly. Taking the time to screen the tenant and making sure that they're the right fit, because if they are, then it just makes your life a heck of a lot easier. The management is just, it's not as difficult as when you have somebody who is difficult. So
it's really good point.
yeah, that would probably be the number one thing. And there's little things that I look for. It's like, okay, what does their car look like? How quickly are they responding? What does the voicemail on their phone sound like? Like just little things that I look for when I'm trying to find a tenant that I think might be a match for me. So
I heard once, people teach you who they are. Listen to them the first time, Yeah.
People teach you how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're interviewing for a role in our company, and then the guy must have just sent out a bunch of applications because he said, "I saw your job ad on this website," which we never posted. So I'm like, I don't know if I really want to interview you,
Yeah.
But bottom line is, if it's like these, it's like you really have to listen to people and they start to show you who they are, and it's so important.
Yeah. And I, like I said, if they take responsibility, people are tenants for a reason. You got to keep that in mind, right? Because if not, they'd probably be homeowners. And so they're tenants for a reason. And that's okay. I'm not always looking at how perfect their credit is or whatever, but it's like, do they take responsibility for what they've done? So if they do, then I'm going to be able to get them on the phone. They're going to communicate with me. They're going to tell me when something goes wrong, that kind of stuff. So those are the things that I think screening the tenant is the most important thing when it comes to managing the property, because it just makes it that much easier.
Yeah.
So,
and not for people to rush, so then they get into a mix of, well, I got to get somebody in there, and and then we
don't do it out of necessity. Do it because you want it's what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. One other question before we transition. There's just a ton. We're going to need like a few hours for this interview. I also was curious to have you explain a little bit about your background as a woman, meaning that you're running a business. You're not relying on any, you don't have anyone doing it for you. You're doing, you running this business. You're an owner of Keller Williams, you're buying these properties. You're financing everything yourself. And I think that's very, very inspiring for women out there, all ages. And, I'm just curious, what advice would you give women out there who often will give people tons of excuses? I'm too busy, I'm too this. And as women, we have a lot of responsibilities, whether you're married or not married, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, you're still balancing life. You're often the person who's pulling relationships together. And there's more to life, I think, as a woman than not. So what is a bit of advice you can give women out there? I mean, you built something from nothing, and I think that's and you're in your 30s, and that's remarkable, So there's probably a ton of things that women need to do, but what can you say to someone out there that says, wow, like how do I do that, and how do I emulate those qualities so I can create that financially free life?
Well, first of all, there has to be a will, there has to be a drive. That's the first thing. Like I said, it's having a mentor or having a coach is helpful to help you get wherever you want to go. And I think that for me, I get this attitude that when something goes wrong, right, and inevitably something's going to go wrong, right? Things go wrong in our life. So when something goes wrong, I always feel like, okay, the best way that I can rebound this is to be stronger, build it better, and move forward, and make that like it's not a big deal anymore, right? Get beyond it. And so whatever that means, and it's doing the right thing all the time, trying to do the right thing all the time, being growth focused. Goodwill goes a long way. You'd be surprised how, and I feel like that takes a long time to come back to you. But if you do something for somebody and you do it out of the goodness of your heart and you come from generosity and contribution, that does come back to you. And so always just having that attitude has really helped me, because like I said, when I called the banker, the first time I called him, I never had a loan with him, but he knew who I was, right? And it wasn't a big loan, but he was more than happy to do it. And he came to my office and I didn't have to leave, and he signed the paper. You know what I mean? So I think just always making sure, not worrying about, thinking long term, thinking about what's longevity look like, not about making $1 today. It's about longevity. And that's always sort of been my focus. It's, okay, how am I going to get to where I want to go who's the kind of person I have to be in order, who would I want to be? Who would I want to look up to? Right. So it's just thinking like that has been helpful. And quite honestly, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you have to ask, right? So have to ask, you have to get out there. For me, it's like I come into the office and I get up early in the morning. I start my day really, really early. And I like to do something for myself in the morning when the world is quiet.
What time do you wake up?
I wake up between 5 and 5:30. So that's about the time that I like to get up. So, but what's great about it is like the world's quiet. So I do something for myself, and I need people to hold me accountable. So, for me, it's like I go to the trainer twice a week. I work out with him twice a week because if I didn't do it, I probably wouldn't go. Right. So I got to do that. So I wake up early. I do something for myself, whatever it is, whatever I want to do is something for myself, whether it's reading or whatever. And then I'll go to the gym twice a week, or I get to the office early when nobody's here so I can concentrate and get rid of the interruptions. And then when I am here, it's my door is open to everybody, but it's no nonsense, right? I'm not in the office like gossiping or whatever. We're here to do business, and that's the example that I want to set with them. Like, I love to have fun and I play hard, but I also work really hard so that I can take 9 vacations a year and I can play golf, 3 or 4 days a week in the summer. It's just, that's the example that I like to set. I'm here early. I do what I have to do. And the other thing too about moving forward in life, when you asked like, how did I do all this? I really set the time to have a personal life, because if I didn't have that balance, I would get burned out, right? I need that time to unwind. I would totally get burned out, because in any industry, you could work all day long, like all day, meaning day and night, like 24 hours a day. And so I need to have that balance. So I literally, in my calendar, my assistant, my staff, everybody sees it. I have my personal time in there. I'm not afraid to share it with them. Like, yeah, I am in Florida this weekend, and yes, I am at the shore this weekend, and yes, I am playing golf this afternoon or tomorrow morning or whatever. They get to see all of that. I don't care, but that's, that is my escape. That's how I balance it all. And that also motivates me to have thinking time so that I can think about the next things that I want to do and how to get there. But it's really, and like I said before, it's not how, it's who's going to help you get there. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, who's going to help you get there? So Theresa, this has been so valuable, and you had mentioned to us too about writing a book, and you got a book. I mean, I'm glad you're writing a book, because if you weren't writing a book, we'd probably tell you should be writing a book.
Yeah, it's funny. Everybody's just telling me that, and I'm like, what the hell do I write a book about? Because I don't think it's too extraordinary. I'm like, I get up in the morning, I go to work, I live my life, I go home, and just like everyone else. So the book, I'm not 100% set on the title, so I don't know. Do I dare say it? I guess I will. But so one day,
put it out there.
Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story. So one day people follow me on Facebook and stuff, and it just never realized, like, a lot of people are like, wow, I'm like, you go to so many places. We love following you on Facebook. We like to see where you're at and what you're doing. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I was talking to this one. I was in Park City, Utah in July at one of our Symmetry 7 events. And there was a woman there who was an author. And I'm talking to her, and I didn't know that she was our guest. Like, we always have a guest, and I was just at a party. I was just talking to her, and like, I hadn't seen her at the house, so I didn't know, whatever. And so she says to me, and long and hold, I find out she's like our guest and the author or whatever. But so she says to me, she goes, you need to write a book. And I'm like, yeah. People tell me that all the time. She's like, no. And I said something to her about, I live my life, like my life consists of 7 Friday nights and 7 Monday mornings. I'm like, every night it feels like a party, and every morning it feels like Monday morning. And she's like, oh my God, that's the greatest title for a book.
Yeah.
And so
I like it. Yeah.
Yes.
So something around that. And she was kind of like, do you know how many people would love to know how to live their life now instead of waiting, like going through, like basically going through all this time of their great years and waiting until they're older to really enjoy it. Because you see that so much, right? I was just in Florida last weekend, And I remember like, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I went into this gym and like, I was the youngest person, I swear, by 30 years in the gym. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't know about this. So it's like, this is just, and I understand why they're there or whatever, but all I could think of was like, I wouldn't want to wait, in order to do this kind of thing. Like there is a way that you can have that balance and you can achieve your successes and still enjoy the life that you want to have. There's a way to do it. And I don't know that I figured that out yet, but I do my best to try to make the most of it. So
the book's like about that kind of memoir of your path and process. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good.
About how to do it, and how to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. I get to do some really fun stuff, and it's just those are the choices and those are the priorities that I make. It's a priority to me. So that's why I get to do it. And I think that's with everybody. We have the saying here at Keller Williams, what you focus on expands.
Oh, yeah.
And so, whatever your focus is what's going to expand. So you have to think about what you really want. So
that's right.
That's awesome. I think we're going to have a different podcast just to go over all of that. Right now, I wanted to go over what we call our fabulous 3 questions. So let's get into it. I wanted to know from you, what's the most transformational book you have ever read?
So the book, I will say this, when I don't know how old I was. I was probably 19 or 20 years old, and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was probably one of the most transformational books I've ever read. It impacted me so hard at that time. No doubt about it.
Yeah. This one was the reason why I started. So it impacted me in a very profound way too. Yeah.
It was that it gave me like, I was like, oh my God, it just said things that you just didn't hear. You know what I mean? And given the path that I've taken in life, you can see that was, definitely an inspirational thing. So
absolutely.
So second one, most powerful routine that you institute for yourself that helps you create this, financially free life as well as a balanced life.
So it relates back to a book. So when I read The Miracle Morning, that was another one. Miracle Morning changed my life too. So the most impactful routine I have is waking up between 5 and 5:30. What it's taught me is that no matter where I have to be, so on the weekends or if I'm somewhere, like I don't make myself wake up early. At this point, I kind of just wake up early now. But I've always said, okay, if I have to be somewhere, I need to be up and active 3 hours before I have to be there. Right. So that's kind of like what it's changed for me, because it gives me the time to unwind. And I try to go through in the morning. Like I look at my calendar and I think about, okay, what do I have to do today? And then I think about how are these conversations going to go? So I try to play them out in my mind. So if I have something important, if I have a meeting with somebody or an appointment with a client or whatever it is, I try to think about, okay, what are all the things that could be a concern for them? And if they ask me that, how am I going to respond? Like I try to go through all those conversations in the morning. I don't know. It's just a routine that I do. And I didn't do it for this because I didn't know what I was going to be at. But I think we're doing okay.
There you go.
But that is a routine that's very impactful to me in the morning. And I know also it's if I don't work out at least 2 to 3 times a week, which for some people that's nothing, but if I don't do that, I don't feel good about myself. So that's another routine that I have incorporated.
Got it. The third one is, which woman, can it be famous or not, alive or dead, doesn't really matter. Which woman or female has inspired you the most?
Oh, that's a tough question. God, in my lifetime. In the beginning, I've referenced the fact that I saw my mom being a stay-at-home mom, and the truth is, my mother and I are not very close. Which is, I found being in this group with other women who were very successful. It seems like a lot of them didn't have a real tight relationship with their mom. I don't know why that is, and I never looked into it. But I saw what I didn't want, and that was very impactful for me. if that makes sense, it was like having that figure there to say, okay, this is not what so that early in my life, I think that was really important. As I've gotten older, there's a woman, her name is Mo Anderson. She was the chairman of the board of Keller Williams Real Estate. She's lived a pretty amazing life, and she wrote a book called The Tenant Farmer's Daughter. And she has she has some really stern values and a pretty amazing way about her in dealing with people, and how she's lost everything and rebuilt everything, came from nothing. Her story is pretty inspiring to me, and obviously I'm a KW broker, so it's kind of like when you think back about things were hard, when you look at, if you read this book and you look at what she went through, it's like, okay, we can get through this. You know what I mean?
There we go.
So
I'm adding to my list.
Yeah. So that type of thing, I'd say that she's kind of one of those people who has really been impactful in my life as well.
Well, thank you so much, Theresa. This has been absolutely fantastic. It just
good. I'm glad.
Wealth of information, for our listeners on, mindset, and then just, specific tactical, real estate investing strategies as well. So just thank you so much for taking time. You got a lot on your plate. So thanks for taking time with us.
No problem.
And being part of this. And, we just really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.